Good morning and welcome to the Morning Spotlight Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Cam, coming to you as always from the Spotlight Studios here in Morristown, New Jersey. Every once in a while in the ever-competitive entertainment industry, a presence enters the scene that turns heads, opens eyes and ears, touches hearts, and makes a lasting impact on everyone they encounter. Such is the case with my guest today, from his incredible four-chair turn on NBC's The Voice and recently mirroring his vocal prowess and breaking linguistic boundaries. That's a mouthful to say. On NBC Telemundo's La Voz, I hope I said that right. He has been leaving his creative mark and vocal resonance on an international level and across multicultural boundaries. Whether he's singing, acting, photographing, or hosting, his compelling focus and his artistry shines through and always leaves his fans and clients wanting more. He is Manny Cabo. Manny, welcome to the show.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me, man. Such a great time.
I am so pumped to have you on. You came in, so we met on Clubhouse, and that is one of the wonders of Clubhouse that, I get to connect with people like you, and, you get to connect with people like me.
Of course.
I'm not going to sell myself
short listen, here. Man, we're all in this together, like I said before. Absolutely, dude.
Right. Yeah. And so you came into one of the rooms, we chatted a little bit. Obviously, there's a connection. We're Jersey guys,
Right.
So
I didn't know you were from Morristown, man. It's too funny. It's awesome.
That's right. So you're in
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth.
I could throw a rock to where you're at right now, man. Seriously.
If we had planned this better, I feel like this could have been my first ever in-person interview. But we just didn't do a good job with that. But
no, it's all good.
You're here. And so I'm excited to have you on. You got the cool studio. I told you before. I mean, you got the shades on. You got the whole vibe. I mean, like we try to do cool stuff on Thursdays. Not that our Tuesday episodes are not cool. We've talked to a lot of cool people in the real estate industry, but that is one thing that I just knew I was going to get. Like we were going to vibe really well together, and we have, and I'm excited. Man. I'm like fanboying a little bit, I guess.
I'm loving the nudies, man. You know how many times I played on that stage at a lot of friends of mine from The Voice, and let me tell you, that's such a humbling town. So it brings back good memories. So I appreciate you wearing the shirt.
Of course. So I just popped into your Instagram live just before we got on here, and I knew I'd seen videos on YouTube in my research that I had seen you playing at different Nashville bars. And stuff like that. So I was like, well, I have a nudies t-shirt. I didn't really know what to wear. Normally I wear like a Morning Spotlight t-shirt or whatever I just happen to have on that particular day. So I was like, I gotta go.
The brand, of course.
You gotta. Yeah. Right. So let's talk about life in Nashville, because I love Nashville. I was just there maybe a month or so ago. So you lived there for 2 years. What made you move there? What was the experience like when you were there?
That's a great story. Well, actually, as soon as I was done with The Voice, I came back, and for some reason, I had this internal gut feeling, be like, I told my wife, I got to get to Nashville for some reason. And I told my band and the guys I was working with, I said, you know what, I have this presence that I really need to get down to Music City. And they all looked at me like I had 10 heads, like, what are you talking about? So fast forward, and I had a couple of my fans, because I have very, very loyal fans, man. I have some of the best fans in the world. You've been following me since forever, from all over the world. And I had this family from down in South Jersey, the Drummonds, who said, you know what, we're looking to do a vacation. Let's drive you down there. So, I planned everything ahead. I went down there with like 4 months worth of finances, just to prepare. So those 4 months turned into almost 18 months, because I'm also a photographer and an editorial music photographer. So I made a career out of photographing artists, tons of artists. And so while I was down there, I'm like a social networking butterfly. I love everyone, I don't see color. I don't see race, religion, politics. I don't care about any of that nonsense. So needless to say, I hooked up with so many incredible top tier musicians out there. And like I said, it's such a humbling city, because everyone can wail. The babysitter can pick up an old, Taylor and just start wailing away. It's mind boggling.
Right.
And so I stayed there for 16 months, ended up playing at Bridgestone Arena, Nissan Stadium, today in Nashville multiple times on NBC, and made a name for myself down there. Of course, you have to know what you're doing. You got to be respectable. You got to be likable, first of all. And, it was just an amazing time. I wrote probably around 3 albums worth of material. If you really want to improve your songwriting prowess, that is the place to be. It's a songwriting capital of the world. So that was another bullet that I added to my belt. And yeah, man, I couldn't have been happier. I met some incredible people that till this day I still resonate with. We still communicate. Just interviewed Rick Barker, who was Taylor Swift's ex-manager, on my podcast. And we had some good heartfelt dialogue about the industry. And these are the people that you interact with that could only elevate, and you could leverage your industry knowledge, of all the platforms. So all in all, man, it was an incredible trip, and I can't wait to go back. I usually go there 4 times a year, and I probably have 6 or 7 photo shoots every time I go down there. Plus, do some cameos, jump on stage like nudies, and just have some fun and rock out. You got to do that while you're down there, of course.
Oh, of course. Well, I mean, I don't do that because I don't know if you know anything about me, but I can't sing for shit. So, we just go down and we have fun. And we listen to
wow. You know what? I will tell you something right now. Anyone who could speak can sing, and I learned that from Richard Fink, who a dear friend of mine. He's the CEO of Throga. If he heard you say that, he'd be like, whoa, Dan, no. You could sing. Anyone can sing, man. So don't say that. And I got you, bro. You want to take some voice lessons? La la la. We'll do it on this episode, but I don't think anyone wants to hear that right now.
No, definitely not, because that would get. I mean, you know how you could track your the time where people drop off. As soon as I start singing, it's going to be that will be the drop off. Right, and they'll never come back. I'll lose spotlighters left and right if that's the case. So talk to me about how you actually got into music.
Oh man, well, you know what? It's I guess it was my upbringing. Both my mom and my dad raised me on a steady dose of every type of genre of music you could think of, from Motown to rock to the Beatles, which are my favorite band. Anything you can name of any type of music that was around during the baby boom era up until now is attributed to my parents. And unfortunately, I don't know if you know, I lost my dad to COVID on December 1st, and he was the reason why I became anything creative, of course, with my mom, but my dad was the one who guided me down that path of, being a drummer, or being a photographer. So it was a big loss for me, man. I'm not going to lie. And it's been tough to recuperate. And I'm never going to recover. That void is always going to be there. But what I can do is continue his legacy through my creativity, through being on other podcasts and uplifting other people, because I've always believed that the collective gain is something that's an impetus for me. I like to embark on projects where everybody can grow. And music has allowed me to meet such incredible people, but also very emotional people, very insecure people. And that's why I was like, this is the industry that I need to be at. There's a lot of good that I could do, but also learn from everyone else. And so, I learned to listen to every type of music because it has helped me develop into a better performer, better singer. Since I'm bilingual, the Spanish side has always been an influence, and that's what led me to get on La Voz, by the way. That's the way you pronounce it, La Voz.
Right, La Voz.
Yeah, because you want my, Hispanic peeps to listen to the Morning Spotlight. You don't want to get them. So, of course. So you got to have that clout,
You can't say La Voz to like the whitest guy in America.
Yeah. Even if that's the only thing you ever say in Spanish, be like, well, you said that right.
Yeah, right.
So I attribute a lot of my diversity musically to my parents, man, without a doubt.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's so cool. And then I don't know if you remember, but after you came into that first room that I ran on Clubhouse, you messaged me and told me that. And that, this was just such a cool community.
It was a while ago, man. Can you believe that? Yeah. Almost 3 months ago. Wow.
3 months ago. Yeah, right. It's crazy. And then here you are 3 months later, jerk, waiting this long to actually get you on the show. Unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, you told me that story about your dad and everything like that. And I was just like, I think it just shows it's good to have good people in your community. Right. And I think you were able to kind of connect with people that have, similar, I don't know, mindset maybe, or maybe just kind of like a outlook of the world and people and all that.
And that goes both ways, man. Because if you're a douche, you're only going to attract douche people. But I like to be on the right side of that. I really like to uplift and educate and motivate. You have to be very selective too with the people that you give your energy to, because there's a lot of vampires out there that try to drain you. So you can't say yes to everything. You got to be somewhat selective, but also when the opportunity comes around, I always love to help. So that's first and foremost.
Of course, which I appreciate, obviously. So let's keep going with this story. So
brother,
one of the things, so I've had a couple musicians, I mentioned it to you before we started. So by the time this episode will post, I will have had on Marty Ray, who is also based in Nashville, and Jericho Rose, who is also based in Nashville. Right? And so one of the things I always curious, as someone that has always been a big music fan, I mean, we have music on in our apartment all the time. Sure. So I just never have been so musically inclined or interested in really taking up that mantle, I guess. I mean, I played instruments when I was a kid in band class, whatever. But so at what point in this kind of trajectory of your life, I mean, obviously you were surrounded, your parents were creative people and they were playing music in the house, similar to that. Were there things that kind of maybe people that you mimicked early on, or was it more just kind of, did you find your voice, early? At what point did you say like, "Hey, I can really sing. Like
Yeah,
I'm really good at this." You
that's
know?
a great question. I've answered this a million times, and it never gets old because, most people would think, well, he grew up with music, like, whether it's martial arts or playing guitar, you start when you're like 4, or whatever the case may be. But
Right.
I was a late bloomer, man. Sure, I was introduced to the drums in like 8th grade, and I made a dent in it. Was in a lot of school plays, high school plays, and it was fun. Played in some minor cover bands back, and more like garage band. That's what we used to call bands back in the day.
Yeah.
And we had fun. But baseball, believe it or not, was my life. Baseball was my passion. I lived, breathed, and did everything baseball. But music was also a side note, pardon the pun. It was also a side note. I love music. I do everything with music. But with respect to me singing, it didn't happen until like I was in my 30s, bro. I was in,
Really?
I dare say it was like around, I was about 28. I was at Seton Hall University at the time. Because I took a couple of years off to work and stuff, because that's what you do, just to pay the bills. And a friend of mine said, listen, bro, I got this incredible band that you might be a cool fit for. And I was dabbling with vocals, Now, mind you, playing drums, I was always doing back vocals. So it's not like I was a complete loss to the industry of singing.
Right.
I did my due diligence, behind the scenes on the skins. But, I really had this affinity to sing, to be a front man. And so then I left my drums and started really working on my voice. And sure enough, I fell into this one band. And after 6 months, to make a long story short, we were playing with bands like Three Doors Down, Stain, Cold, Godhead, SR-71, Lit. We had a sold-out show with Lit. That's when everything turned for the worse, because I get a phone call from my guitar player, who was always kidding around. He's like, bro, our show's been canceled. I'm like, yeah, whatever. We just did massive interviews, radio interviews, or paraphernalias all over, the walls in New York City and stuff. And sure enough, he goes, bro, turn on your TV. 2 planes just flew into the World Trade Center. I'm like, oh. And so, you know what? Not only a loss for us, but a huge loss for the world. That
Right.
impacted the industry, and it kind of never recovered from there. So throughout my journey, I could honestly say there have been some hardships. I've shed many, many tears, a lot of cursing, a lot of frustrations, because think about it, being in a band, man, it's like marrying 5 guys.
Right.
It's an emotional roller coaster. So I decided this is too much. But I'm glad I stuck with it, because obviously, as the story says, the rest was history with the voice and La Voz, and I continue to do that today, and it's been my means of sustenance. But yeah, I was certainly a late bloomer, and it goes to show you, while I was on The Voice, I awoke a sleeping giant, as they say in the headlines, because so many people my age were like, bro, because of you, I dusted off my guitar. I went in my garage. It was dust everywhere. I started banging on my skins. My wife's yelling at me, thanks to you. And I'm like, all right, great. I'm happy that your wife's going to divorce you because of me. But,
I did that. Yeah.
but it's inspiring to propel people to go back and nurture that craft that was once there, that they were so passionate about. And my recommendation to everybody is, if it's something that you really love, don't abandon it.
Right.
Really, don't abandon it, because it's part of you, and you're always going to feel that void. That's why I entertain every sector of my life that I love, because you only get one chance to live. And the loss of my dad really heightened those senses for me. I appreciate breathing more than ever, because I lost my dad in a whole duration of a week. So
Right.
yeah, man, I hope that answers your question, man.
Oh,
But
yeah. No, that's a great answer.
I love singing. I do. I enjoy it. I enjoy being on stage. I enjoy putting smiles on people's faces, getting fan mail and telling people, hey, what do you want me to sing? Or how did this song affect you? And people listen to your lyrics. Not to mention, I get emails from all over the world of people that I don't even know. This is the amazing part about being an entertainer, and the luxuries of being on TV, where they reach out to you, thank you, Manny, because of your words, you saved my life. I've known people that didn't kill themselves because of my lyrics. So if that's a testament to why I've really worked so hard in being the best possible entertainer, not just from the glamour side, the singing side, but from the people side, sending out positive messages through my lyrics. It's really important to me, because you never know whose lives you're going to affect and touch. That's why I tell people, be careful what you say.
Right.
And continue to do good, man, because you never know the lives that you can change for the good and the bad.
Of course. Yeah. So we're going to continue with that. But at
Yeah.
some point in that answer, you talked about your baseball background. Could you tell me more
Yeah,
about
man.
that? Because I don't know if you know this, but I also have a significant background in baseball. So
That's
I
awesome.
played at TCNJ. I coached college baseball for 5 years after college
Brilliant.
before I started selling, do my normal job.
Mm.
But tell me about that. Like, tell me about baseball.
Oh
Let's
man,
talk about that.
you know what, growing up with baseball, I was always a street kid, we were raggeds, we were out there just playing against a brick wall, tennis balls, whatever you could find. And I just grew up loving the sport, and growing up, my idols were like Roger Clemens, Nolan Ryan, oh my God, so many, Dwight Gooden. So I got cut from my first 6th and 7th grade baseball team, heartbroken. And we have a huge discussion about inclusion, but that's another story. I don't even want to get into that. But
I also got cut from my 7th grade baseball team.
yeah, well,
And I was a pitcher. I'm assuming because you just rattled
yes,
off pitchers, also a
yes,
pitcher.
yeah,
We're so alike. We should be
yeah,
like
bro.
best
We're cut
friends.
from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is serendipitous, bro. We were
Yeah,
meant to have
exactly.
this interview, right?
Yeah.
So 6th grade, I got cut. Coach said I wasn't good enough. 7th grade, I went back, improved, got cut. I'm like, wow, but I didn't give up. I had that Michael Jordan syndrome where you never give up. I came back the 3rd year, and obviously the most improved, won the MVP, led the league in strikeouts. I think I averaged 12 strikeouts per game. Then I went on to high school, got recruited to go to high school to a Group 4, which in New Jersey, Group 4 is the biggest division.
Yeah.
And every game I had scouts. I was throwing upper 80s, 92 miles an hour, possibilities of getting drafted. And I took a couple of full scholarship offers, and I ended up going to Florida. And then, as fate had it for me, I tore my rotocuff. That was it. Done. My baseball career is done. But luckily, I managed to maintain my grade point average at somewhat of a decent level, because I hated school. I really did. Till this day, I just can't stand school. But I was passionate in learning the things that I loved. I will learn everything there is to know about music and songwriting and podcasting. If you get my point. Like,
Right.
I have to have this affinity for something for me to delve deep into the educational process and learning the workings of it. But it's just one of those things where that's just who I am. If I don't like it, I don't engage in it. And baseball was something that I was all in. It was one of those things. If you shook me in the middle of the night, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. What do you want to be? I want to be a baseball player. I want to be a baseball. I want to play the pros, But nowadays, the closest thing I get to playing pros, I sing in national anthems, in major stadiums. So that's still good.
That's
I
pretty
relive
good.
my old, right? I still,
Yeah.
could be worse.
Yeah.
I could be watching it just on TV, but there's nothing, man, like the smell of a stadium, man, and going
It's the
to Yankee
best.
Stadium or Fenway Park. I'm not a Red Sox fan, but I just love the sport. I'm not hung up on the whole. I love the rivalries because it's good for baseball, but I don't hate Boston Red Sox. I just love baseball,
Right.
And that was my life. Yeah, and it's one thing that many people do not know about me. Yeah, it's like, really? No, you're the tattoos and everything. Well, yeah, I didn't have a life before music, man, and I am 51 years old, so I've done a few things in my life. And baseball was certainly one of them.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, no, we actually got back to Yankee Stadium maybe a couple weeks ago at the time
Yeah.
of this recording, and it was just like it was so good to be back. Like I'm partial
Yeah,
myself
man.
to the old Yankee Stadium personally.
Yeah, me too, bro. It's more majestic.
Right. And as a Yankee fan, I mean, I'm the same as you. I feel like I'm more of a baseball fan, and I think
Right.
Fenway Park it's got to be one of my favorite places to go see either a baseball game, and I've seen a couple
Yeah.
concerts there as well. And the concerts at Fenway Park are
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah,
You know,
sure. Never been, but I've been there a few times. And actually, a quick little story. I made a bet with a good friend of mine, John Russo. Die hard. Die hard. I mean, when I tell you die hard, he's just as die hard as a Yankee fan. And we both worked at Apple Computers for years. And we'd close the night shift sometimes. And I lost him. He passed away to complications. And we promised each other, listen, the first one to go, we have to promise one another that we're going to jog around each other's stadium, tap it, and say our names, And so I promised, I upheld my promise, and I went down there. What was it, probably 7 years ago, and I jogged around. And I don't know what it is about that town, but you could hear the cheer. I know it sounds corny. It's like one of those stories, but unless you're there, it was quiet. You could hear a pin drop, and
right.
I can imagine the cheer. And when you're walking around I don't know if you've ever been to the Green Monster, quote unquote, but you walk in, there's passages where you could see through the stadium. You could see right through.
Yeah.
And so many thoughts go through your head, and it's a sad loss for me because we talked slept baseball, me
Right.
and John, and it was just something that was really nice. It was my gesture. So, John, if you're listening, we're still talking about you, bro. And yeah,
No,
that was
it's
my
awesome.
promise. We jog around the stadium, touch, and say, John, this one's for you, man. And I did, and it's that was my first encounter with the green monster. I made sure it was on that side too.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean that's awesome. And that's that's the cool thing about a lot of the stuff that we do, because I feel like the podcasting community that we've kind of found ourselves being a part of, and just my best friends in my life are
Right.
guys that I played baseball with, and they
Yeah.
be my best friends for forever. And I
Yeah.
think that there's certain things that just really tie you together. Like I'm almost getting like the
Absolutely.
chills thinking about it, just because like those are things that are just they're timeless. And because of just like
Really are,
one
man.
sport, one activity, one whatever, you're just tied to people for life. And that's just a great
Yeah.
story. The two concerts that I've seen there, just as a quick sidebar,
Sure.
Zach Brown Band, which
Wow.
they play there like I think they have the most consecutive sellouts outside of the Red Sox than any other performer or whatever in the history of Fenway Park.
Right.
And then the other one was Florida Georgia Line was the headliner, with
Right.
the Backstreet Boys and Nelly as their opening acts, which was
That's an interesting lineup. Yeah.
insane. It might have been one of the best concerts I've ever been to, because it was so eclectic, but it was so
Right.
cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. Yeah. It's you tie in music and sports in some way, shape, or form, and you get Manny, because I do. I love both, and I still watch baseball avidly. Not as much as I'd like to. And,
Right.
it's funny, but now that you mention that, as an aside, my wife and I were having a pretty cool discussion about something in the news. Our kids go like about 20 minutes before they start saying they're bored. I'm like, bro, when we were kids, you give me a baseball, it's 12 hours. You got to drag me off the diamond. We would spray paint a square on school walls if we had to. Just sneak into like parking lots just to play. So I find that really difficult to digest, because our childhood was so inventive. We found ways to be creative, and baseball was certainly one of them. Yeah, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's such a cool thing. I did not know that about you. This is why we do podcasts, because I just learned
Yeah, man.
more. There's way more to Manny than just the stuff that you see.
And I appreciate that
Yeah.
too, because I don't mind answering all of the voice and La Voz questions in music, but it's those little stories that bring me back as well. So
Right.
it's like a moment in time that I could just relapse to those moments as well. So thank you for that.
Of course. So now we're gonna get back to the more questions I'm sure that you're used to. So
Right.
at what point did you? Let's talk about the voice, because
Right,
obviously we've
exactly.
never talked about that before.
No,
but I do want to talk about it just because I don't really know like the story per
I'm
se.
kidding. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Love it.
But let's talk about that. So I mean,
Sure.
I grew up watching
Yeah.
like the first seasons of American Idol.
Hmm.
So you watch like I don't know. Bo Bice was like one that I always thought was
Right.
so cool. Like the guy, he had long hair, lost to Carrie Underwood. Obviously, she did.
Yeah.
Herself. But talk to me about like that experience. Like, how does one decide that they're going to enter a singing competition, and
Yeah.
then you get on the stage and then you crush it like you did?
Another one, it's a great question, and one that shocks everybody, because I can't stand those shows. I never did, it's funny, but I got on the show probably because I was so honest about it, because, I auditioned for American Idol and the X Factor. I did well. I just walked out, never finished the process. They wanted me to come back, but there was a lot going on behind the scenes that I wasn't too crazy about. We'll just leave it at that. The Voice was the only show, and again, I didn't really feel like doing it. I had a little bit of peer pressure on my corner. My friends are like, bro, you got to go, man. You got a pretty decent voice. You should at least take a chance. You're 45. It would be cool to see you on there. So I conceded to it, and I remember it was a Wednesday night. Dude, it was freezing in New York City. It was like 9:30. I was already late from work, because I used to manage a photo studio in Manhattan, 5th and Sunset. And we got there, and my buddy Mike goes, bro, this is a sign, man. Look up. You're meant to be here. And I look, I'm like, there's a sign that says Manny's. It's literally right next door to the door. I had my hand on the door to open up, and it said Manny's. I'm like, bro, all right, here we go. I got to go in now.
Right.
Now
It's fate.
the signs are there.
Yeah.
So I went in, had some cool heartfelt dialogue with the producers, and they asked me a whole bunch of questions. Normally you go in there and do like 1 or 2 songs. I ended up doing like 7 songs, because they knew I was bilingual. And you give me a microphone and you tell me, Manny, bro, you got to sing right now. You got to get off this podcast, hang up, and go to Madison Square Garden, do a set. I'd be like, all right, where? Let's take me there. Give me the microphone. I'm ready to rock,
Yeah.
So that's the attitude that you have to have if you want to succeed in this industry. You always got to be ready to perform. So I went in, did my thing. I ended up doing like 6 songs, and I was more fascinated by the equipment because remember I said I'm a photographer, so I'm looking at the cameras. I'm like, oh, so I see you guys are using diffusing. Meanwhile, you can tell the producers like, yeah, but it's like 10:30. We want to get your story, and they're like,
Shut up and just sing.
Filter. Right. So right off the bat, they knew that I wasn't really, my heart wasn't into it. And I think that's what was intriguing because they knew that I had a talent, but I wasn't there for the end result type of thing. And I always encourage people, just live in the moment. That's what I essentially do with everything. And the voice actually heightened my sense of that, my appreciation to live in the moment and just enjoy the journey. So I went on there, did my song, and the rest was history. Then I went on The Voice, did Here I Go Again, crushed it, 4-chair turn. That changed my life. But here's the thing. The Voice introduced me to my purpose, and it wasn't singing, man. When I tell you that, it was inspiring people, because I would look back, I had 30, 40 kids in my hotel room, parents, inspiring them, tell them, don't forget about the 90 seconds that you're going to be singing. If you focus on that, then your journey's going to pass you by, then you're going to wish you spent more time. Focus on your friends, focus on learning, focus all the incredible journeys that this actual trip, the journey in general, has taken you to. And till this day, that is the extension of what I do now, which is continuing this path of higher education to inspire and learn, especially my ecosystem of musicians, of how to really live in the moment and how to appreciate their gifts and cultivate their gifts to put their best foot forward and come to correct in their passion, which is music. So I'm so grateful for that entire journey. And then to do it again in Spanish was even bigger because, I killed all those barriers, those cultural barriers. People are like, well, wait a second, you're Hispanic, you're bald, you're tattooed, but here I am singing this Spanish ballad that I've never sung before. And you can't screw those songs up because every Hispanic knows these songs. They're iconic. Right. So no pressure. But no. Yeah, both of those journeys were so gratifying on all levels, from meeting people, interacting with top-tier professionals, the experience, the knowledge, indispensable knowledge, I might add. So yeah, it was just an incredible time for me, and it changed my life. It really did.
Yeah. So you talk about the fact that it was like an educational and you're in an educational, inspiring type of role, I guess. With you said your ecosystem of musicians.
Yeah.
Was that something that over the course, maybe it wasn't the voice or la voz?
Nice.
Was it,
nice.
You caught that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
You. I'm a pro, dude.
Muy bien, bro. Muy bien.
Gracias. But prior to this, were there moments or people in this course of your music career, I guess, that did that for you, that you were able to kind of take maybe those lessons or those approaches to the industry and other musicians and use those to kind of help others?
Absolutely. Because what I saw in musicians, I saw in myself. Dude, I had bigger ego than the stadiums that I've sold out in. I got to tell you, it was brutal. But here, I say this because it's very important to know those egos came from my own insecurities. Because, from a young age, I was verbally bullied. Everyone always tried to change me, change the way I wanted to. Stop painting your nails, stop using all this jewelry. I was always a jeans and t-shirt type of kid. I never really was fond of the elaborate. I was a scrappy kid. That's why I loved baseball, I guess, and sports. And what I saw in the other artists is exactly what I saw in me, always worried about, well, how many people are watching me? How great do I have to be? Do people have to like me? And I'm like, wait a second. Then the light bulb went off. I could use my own experiences to explain to these kids, because essentially they're kids, are 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, what not to do, right. Like I said, what to really and truly focus on, because you're killing it for yourself. You're worrying about that because it didn't work for me. So I'm grateful for all those hardships and the tears, because another thing I'm going to share with you, which I talk about on a lot of podcasts, is I was basically an abortion waiting to be made because the doctors told my parents, don't have this kid. He's going to be born with complications. Something's going to be wrong. There's just something that we don't like about what's going to happen here. And my parents said, absolutely not. And here I am 51 years later talking to you about baseball.
Right.
So to make a long story short, I've always embraced that underdog theory. I've always felt like I've got to succeed. There's this inner drive, and I don't know where it came from, but I know where it came from, figuratively speaking, of course. And I just use that every day as my impetus to keep inspiring other kids to really focus on the things that matter in life. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Right. So talk to me about, and I think that's very interesting because on this show,
Yeah.
we've talked about authenticity a lot and just leaning into who you are. And that's one of the things that I had struggled with for a long time, coming out of.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, man.
And I don't think that it's ever a thing that you just like nail it.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's a quest.
Sure.
Ever evolving thing. You're going to have different, good days, bad days. That's going to affect
absolutely.
what authentic self you're able to actually put out there. But talk to me about like how important that is. And especially like maybe, in the world that we I think it's important in any kind of world, but whether it's, you're an accountant or you're a podcaster or you're a singer or you're, whatever, I think that it's important to kind of show people who you are, and people kind of like suppress who they are a lot of times. And I think that that's a big thing. So talk to me about the importance of that.
Well, I think insecurities come from all levels, all locations. They're instilled by family values, societal conventions. And the one thing I tell people, first of all, in anything that you do, it's always a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everyone wants successes. And now with the proliferation of social media, our kids are being educated by celebrities and quote unquote influencers that are really misleading because they claim to have these perfect lives when essentially they don't. They probably have worse lives than you do, but we're just misguided as a society. And don't get me wrong, I leverage all my platforms, but I leverage them to do good. And listen, if I want to get on live, I'm not worried about what I look like. Sometimes I go on scruffy. Sometimes I go on, I don't care, what's the lighting in the background. And again, it's a question of integrity. And yes, that didn't come easy. That came through a lot of years of developing who I was. You have to fail. You have to fall flat on your face to realize what doesn't work. It's part of the process. I think if you're not, and I hate the word failing, let's just use trial and error.
Yeah.
Because if you don't screw up, then how the hell are you going to know what works? The problem is everyone's so afraid of always, walking the tightrope and, just coming correct to the point where it's like, you're nervous about presenting yourself. And half the time you don't even know who you are because you're too busy catering to everybody's, reactions toward you.
Right.
So for me, it has certainly been a learning experience. But I wanted to learn because I was so frustrated all the time. Like, what is wrong? Like, I'm doing this, but I'm not happy. There's something missing here. And the point I'm trying to make is we have to really want to delve within ourselves first, because we can't make anyone else happy if we're miserable inside. You can't fall in love if you don't love yourself first. Don't forget about relationships. You need to find out what's going on in here, in this brain of yours, right, before you can move on, because what you're going to do is you're going to affect everyone around you in ways that you never thought possible for the negative. So that's the first thing that I counsel people on, and tell people, have patience with yourself. It's not going to come overnight. I recommend that you meditate. You got to quiet your mind. Your brain, scientifically speaking, it's proven to have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Your brain is craving some quiet time. So I take 10 minutes in the morning, meditate, 10 minutes at night. And the biggest gurus on the face of the planet, and this is how I've become to understand myself more, to be more patient, to get these signs, these ideas, these creative spurts that come that we think is a coincidence, which is not, because your brain is now a little bit more relaxed, and now you're acutely aware of the surroundings. Your senses are heightened. You hear things. Maybe it's a link, or maybe you perused over a website, and you're like, oh my God, that just came to me automatically. And there's a lot of things that I've learned because of my frustrations. But then that's the type of person that I am. Because I was frustrated, I wanted to understand why. Some people just live in frustration, don't make the effort to understand why they're in that temperament that they're feeling right now.
Right.
And why we lose so many artists, so many talented people to suicide, to overdose, I personally never believed in therapy. I never have. I think that therapy comes from within. I think that you really want to have the desire to live. You got to want to live. You got to want to understand. You got to want to have solutions. I feel that many people are just lazy. They want the answers to come through them through osmosis. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
especially nowadays. And I get a lot of heat for that, but I don't really care because I know what works and I know what doesn't. And, you know, I've talked to so many people. I've inspired and encouraged people that have been to therapy. They're like, I should have just came to you. So I know it works.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know, man. It's one of those questions. It's a loaded question. It truly is, but one that I feel is best served when you take the time out to find out more about yourself and look in the mirror, because all the answers lie at the person staring back at you.
Oh, of course. You know what I think, and you know, like this is gonna. Last year, obviously, was rife with a bunch of terrible things.
Yeah.
You know, and like a lot of people just. Right. So, but I do think that at certain points over the course of the year, because especially early on, you know, we live in New Jersey. Like I walk in Morristown to go get a cup of coffee. I come within 6 feet of probably 25 people, and I live 4 seconds away from a coffee place.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's one of those things. It was like that culture shock for people that like us living in this area. So it just forced us to kind of like sit with ourselves for a bit.
Sure.
You know, like it forced us to have that quiet time, which I think in hindsight for me, as you know, I know it's the same with other people that I've met over the course of, you know, the time on the show and talking to other people. That was a big thing for me because I started looking at myself, what I would do, who I was interacting with, the types of relationships I had, how I was at work, how I was with my family, all those kinds of stuff. And I was, this isn't really me, you know? And then like, as I kind of progressed and I started trying different things and I started the show at the very beginning was not, you wouldn't even know it's the same show other than the fact that it has the same name. It was the Morning Spotlight.
Bro.
It's evolved. Yes. But I feel like it's just that it's the quest. You're just getting closer and closer. But because I took that time to kind of what you were saying, just like, I mean, granted, it was over an extended period of time, maybe not 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. It was over months. And, you know, it was finally a point where I start to feel like, okay, like this feels right. You know, like I feel comfortable here.
Like you stuck with it.
Right.
There lies the secret of your
exactly.
success. You stuck with it. Yeah. You
right.
didn't give up, man. You can't give up on yourself. Because
tell
you what, if you give up on yourself, then you're already done because nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know, they think that they care. And, you know, people will tell you, oh, I'm sorry. But, you know, they're too busy looking out for themselves, which is okay.
Right.
That's why it's your responsibility to look out for yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, of course. And I think that's such a great, I mean, I love talking about that kind of stuff because it's something that I've wrestled with for a long time. And I think that, not that I'm an expert, but I just like to talk about it with people that I think are, you know, thinking similarly to me, I guess. So, so let's talk about, you just released a single, Worst Bad Decision. I've listened to it. It rocks. So talk to me about like the original music. Like, I mean, I know you're a songwriter and you're doing all these different things. So like, I mean, how do you like write songs? Is that like a stupid question? How's that
No,
work?
man, absolutely not. You know, because not everybody can write songs. You know, a lot of people have thoughts, but they can't translate it into words, you know, and I've learned, you know, I would write down words, you know, growing up, I'll be like, you know, this is great. I can't understand why, blah, blah, very basic. So that's why, again, alluding to what I said before at Nashville, you know, there's always a process and it depends on how passionate you are on whatever process is that you want to pursue. I wanted to become a better songwriter. So I learned to educate myself from people that have placed songs in movies and soundtracks, whatever the case may be, who understand the story, the dimensions of a song, because there is a formula. You know, you have to understand the formula before you break it, you know. So therein lies the secret to so much success that has happened because of a love song, because they touch us in ways that we can't explain. I don't know why I like that song. Maybe it's the way that he sang this verse, or it's the word that he used for that particular line. We don't know. We just know that it resonates with us. So I've been fortunate, especially on this song, to write multiple songs with a dear friend of mine. She's actually from Philly, Bonnie Warren. And we're very widely known for message co-writers. We write songs that have messages. You know, Hate Has No Home Here was all about anti-hate. Where Your Words is a true story about, you know, bullying. And we became huge advocates against anti-bullying. And we got written up in Patch.com. It was a true story about a little girl who was bullied so severely that one day she came home and her father questioned why she was so sad. And she put Post-its on her body of every single name that she was called. Really, really a dramatic story. So that touched Bonnie and I. And we wrote a song, Where Are Your Words? And now Worst Bad Decision, which, by the way, it's kicking ass. It's in the top 20 for the most requested songs on independent radio for an independent artist. There's over 4,000 radio stations playing the song. I keep getting the metrics, and it's so amazing and humbling for me, because I know that the song is resonating, because there is a powerful message behind the song, and it's, we should never settle. Okay, meaning that we all deserve the love that we want in life. And there's so many battered relationships out there, abusive relationships, you know. And I know I'm singing it from the standpoint from a male to a female, but it's cross-gender. It could be a male to a male, female to a female, best friend to a girl to whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just those messages that need to get out into the world. And what better way to do it than through music? It's a universal language, and we all can communicate with that. So the feedback that we've been getting on it has been incredible. I'm just so happy that people are understanding the message. And it's all my fans and supporters that are helping me get the message out. You know, and frankly, I don't care if they buy the song, as long as when they play the song, they feel the songs. They feel the emotion that I felt, because that was one of the difficult songs. I'm releasing 3 or 4, I think 4 after this one. And it was a tough song to sing, because that was at the time, you know, where I just lost my dad. And I can't tell you how many times I lost it, you know, crying in the studio. I had to stop, you know, because the words are so heartfelt, because I love my dad. You know, my dad was amazing.
Yeah.
And I kind of poured it out, and there's so many people like, dude, I feel the power in your vocals, you know, more so than I ever do. And that's why. So I attribute that passion and then that sadness and that anger. There were so many elements that went into that song, in addition to the powerful message of the lyrics itself, that I think it made for a very cool recipe for success of the song, and it's doing well. And I appreciate you asking me about it.
Oh, of course. No, because I needed to listen to it, because I know you, right? And I know that, like, it has the message and everything, the emotion behind it. And like I said at the outset of that question, that it rocks. And like, I, you know, like music. So
what was your favorite part, man? What was your favorite part of the song?
I mean, I just think that just like the energy that it has. I mean, I just think that it, like you said before, I mean, you feel it, like you feel the emotion behind it. And that was going to be my lead into my next question, is just the fact that, like, is it hard? Like, I know you said early on in this episode that you need to be able to, like, perform at like a moment's notice. Yeah. And like, that's just kind of maybe like your mindset or whatever. But is it hard? Like, do you think that you get yourself into a mindset like you did with this song that you do with, like, if you're like covering a song? Is it different? Is it harder to like get up for certain songs and not others? I'm just curious as to know that.
No, a great question. And no, I think that my mindset is, listen, every song, whatever it is that I'm tackling, I got to crush it. You know, I'm Manny Cabo, and I got this, because it's a consistency. You know, consistency for me is key, whether I'm singing someone else's song or my songs. I want to deliver it the same way that I initially felt it in my mind, heart, and soul. You know, I want to make sure that it resonates with everybody, and that it's based on your performance, how well I sell the performance. If not, it's, you know, what's the point, to be honest with you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And also, just as a quick sidebar, your camera went out.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
We're pros.
Yep. Oh, my apologies, man.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
There you go. Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. We're back.
And we're back. Should I go? Do I want me to go back in the same frame where I was? So
right. So, and I think I was like here.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I didn't want to stop it because it was such a good answer, and it was, you know, like, I really wanted to ask that question, so I just let it go. So this is all going to be part of it anyway, because we do like simple edits here, because
plus you got to have the bloopers, man. It makes everything so more real, you know.
Right. We're real people. We're real, you know. That's the authentic side of it. If you're getting all no bloopers in an episode, it's not real. I mean, everybody makes mistakes. So
exactly.
So let's talk about, as we're talking about podcasting, let's talk about your podcast. So what is it? Who you talk to? Let's do like the 30,000 foot view of what the show is.
Sure. Well, it's called Mojo for Musicians. It's essentially a source of inspiration for musicians, you know, from my journeys, of course, on the voice, la voz. I talk about the pros and cons, what to do, what not to do. And then to support, you know, my teachings, obviously, I have multi-Grammy and Emmy award-winning producers, engineers, best-selling authors, world record holders, CEO, entrepreneurs, you know, to give them a spin on how to benefit the music industry, to not only sing better, but how to run your own business, because musicians, it's a business. This is our brand. So essentially it's just geared toward inspiring and educating my community of musicians at the end of the day.
Awesome. And it's been successful because you
Very
were just
successful.
featured in
Yeah,
Podcast Magazine,
that's
right?
correct. Yep.
So talk to me about like, is this the same type of thing where it's like, how long ago did you start the podcast again? I had
About
it.
2.5 months ago, man.
Oh, so this is like new,
This is
new.
relatively new. I did radio for a while, but the podcast was something that was created out of my own passion. Because of the pandemic, I felt so I don't know, constrained in here in my little Cabo cave, as we all call it. There's only so many
Cabo
live
Cave. I
right?
love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. That was
Yeah.
the nickname that my guitar player Dave and co-producer friend of mine came up with, like Cabo Cave.
Nice.
And so I felt everything was so, I don't know, contrived. It had to be this way. Or this is the only space that we have. And so I needed another outlet. And the loss of my dad gave me that impulse to, I got to get the messages out a little bit more. And I figured, yeah, podcasting, because it's been a thought for some time now. And I finally pulled the trigger and I said, you know what, I'm going to make the necessary investments, learn as much as I can. And when it comes to learning, man, I will not launch anything. I become a sponge. I learn everything and anything that has to do with what I'm trying to do. Hooked up with some of the top podcasters, ask questions, because, being in TV, let's be realistic, I have a lot of advantage. You have access to a lot of people, that are already well established. So, I took some copious notes, and then from there, I came up with my own show. And I figured, what better way to create a podcast than something that aligns with your truth? And my truth is to inspire, to educate, and still do music. So once I combined those three elements, I came up with Mojo for Musicians, and it was like an obvious choice at that point.
Right. Yeah. Because I was just going to say, because I feel like the show just matches with what we were talking about earlier in this episode. I mean, I think it, with the educational and inspiring side of it, that's what the show is all about, which I think is just a perfect outlet for someone like you. And then what I like about the show, and granted, we don't necessarily, I mean, I feel like sometimes I sell myself short, but we don't necessarily have like a message per se. I mean, learning, like talking to people and hearing their journey and what they've been through and how they, go about their lives and all that, I think is the message ultimately.
Yeah,
but there's not like, like the morning spotlight doesn't focus on this, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I think that is one of the things that's really cool, because I think that you're able to broadcast that message instead of doing maybe a one-on-one, like like if I'm having a conversation with you and you're mentoring me on how I need to take back up the clarinet and get back on that horse.
Right.
But like that could just be a one-on-one conversation, but then you broadcast that out to hundreds of thousands or whatever you're getting people, and next thing you know, like you're connecting with more, and then
it's a totally different consumption experience. You're not imposing on people's lives. I could still be on the treadmill. I could still keep driving, still continue to hear the story. And then if it resonates with you and it aligns with you and who you are, your interests, now you've gained a loyal fan. And the whole key to all this is to that's why it's so important to speak your truth. Like, what's important to you? Whatever that is, just do that. If the morning spotlight has to do with living in New Jersey and Morristown, right? Then write about that and talk about that. People just they try so hard to reinvent themselves, and they don't have an objective. They don't even start off with an objective. And they're always like, well, I wanted to try to do this, do that. I'm like, well, do you like doing that, or you're just influenced to do that?
Right.
I never really thought about that. I'm like, exactly. And I hear that on Clubhouse all the time. And I make recommendations. I'm in a couple of rooms where people talk about, their own TV shows. And I'm in there with a couple of good high core executives talking about how to shape and brand yourselves. And it's incredible how many people brand themselves around influences. And it's the other way around. You need to be influenced by something that you're passionate about, then learn that. And if you're influenced to the point where you love it, then do that.
Right.
Just don't go into something because, Dan likes it.
Yeah.
So, okay, why not? He's doing it. He's doing well with it. I might as well try it. No, everyone wants to follow the next person with a flashlight. It doesn't work that way. Make your own choices. Make your own decisions based upon your experiences is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right. Well, I think you're absolutely right, because I think that's how my show started. It was because I needed a way to get it out in front of clients and network and do all that kind of stuff. And so that's why, like, I started out and, it was in my living room here in my apartment. And, you
Right.
know, I had the jacket and the shirt and the tie, and I'd read my questions to you, and you as my guest would have those questions
Sure.
beforehand. So a lot of times you were reading answers back to me. And I've said this a lot of times. You could imagine the original iteration of the Morning Spotlight was electric. And you can
Mhm.
still go to the YouTube page and see all those electric episodes. But eventually I just realized that, you know, like the part that I'm passionate about connecting with people is to
Right.
really get to know them, and
Sure.
reading them three questions, not listening to what they're saying because I need to just cut together a 5-minute episode
Right. Right.
doesn't work. And I'm just like curious. I like to know about what makes people tick,
Yeah.
why they got involved in certain things. It could be about real estate, it could be about music, it could be about sports, it could be about whatever, you know. But like there's you start to see like these same types of things that are like undercurrents in people that have found success
Sure.
in different areas of their lives. And if you're able to give that to people, then there you go. You know,
And
like
therein
that's
lies the nuggets of the reality of it. Because, you know, I might say something, you're expecting an answer from me. Yeah, sure, I'll answer it. But it's me getting to that answer like, whoa, 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 wait a second. You just mentioned something that really appealed to me. I had no idea it had to do with the end result of what you gained.
right.
And so many people miss out because they don't have that heartfelt dialogue, you know, and you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's why, you know, like the guests that I've had on and, you know, like all that kind of stuff, I think that also helps shape me. And I'm curious to know if that also does for you, because as someone that's coming from the standpoint of being like, you want to be the educational guy, the
Right.
inspiring guy, do you ever
Right.
like get that reciprocated back? Like you go into this thinking like, hey, I'm gonna mentor this person, or however
Yeah.
you approach that situation, and then you start talking to them, you're like, oh my God, like this is like kind of shaped me too.
Well, you know what's funny? I usually take a neutral stance, but I go into it thinking that I'm going to learn something. And that makes it even more exciting because
Right.
you're putting pressure on yourself if you're like, okay, well, I need to mentor. I got to make sure that I dot all the I's and cross. No, absolutely not. Like, I want to go into it. First of all, enjoy the entire experiences, offer my knowledge where it's needed or where it's called for, but learn about the person. It's all about the sponge mode. I want to know everything I need to know about my guests. And, you know, of course, I do my due diligence prior, so I'm prepared, but I want to learn something from that person that can inspire me. And then if I can impart something that might inspire them, then so be it. You know, it's a totally different approach. You got to take that pressure off yourself, man.
Right. Yeah. No, of course. And so, all right, I literally just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh my God, we've been talking for almost an
I
hour.
know, dude.
We probably could talk for forever. Just
Sure.
because, like, I mean, I did not realize we had this much in common going into this, and then we started talking, and
And
I
you
was
wouldn't know that if you just came up with me for three questions and all right, I got to get a segment. You wouldn't
right.
know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, let's talk about the voice. Let's
Right.
talk about La Voz, and let's talk about
Levels.
the single.
Right.
See ya. Yeah.
Right. We're done.
Right. Yeah. We'll see you on the next episode with whoever, and we'll read them three questions. But
Right. Of
so
course.
talk to me about, like, you have all these different projects. You got the photography side, you got the
Yeah.
music side, you got the podcast. You got your hands in a lot of pots,
You have
I
a lot of
guess.
layers, man. I
And
know.
so is it ever hard to kind of balance all those things?
Very
And like,
hard. I'm going to cut you off
because,
right there, dude.
yeah,
It's
because,
very, very hard.
right.
And you know what? The one thing that has certainly come to my aid is compartmentalizing my days. If I didn't, compartmentalize, look, it's so hard I can't even pronounce the word. But if I didn't learn to compartmentalize my days, dude, I'd lose my mind. I really would, because
Right.
you have to. You know, with photography, there's taking the photographs, there's doing the research, and of course, there's post production and getting clients. It's a business. Then music is a business. Then podcasting is a business. Everything that I do it with the intention of learning, growing, expanding, educating, and of course, monetizing. You have to, or else it doesn't work for me, because everything I do at the stage of my life. Not saying that I'm old or anything, because I'm young. People don't believe me when I tell them I'm 50, but I'd like to retire soon enough. Manny's not going to do entertainment all his life, but while I'm doing it, I want to maximize all the layers and all the outlets that are afforded to me.
Right.
So yeah, compartmentalizing my days is huge, and sometimes I still fall short. I just need more hours in the day, but because you have to rest. You really do. You can't just work. We're all under this false narrative. I know Gary Vee says it all the time, and I appreciate him to death. But you can't slave all day long, over your goals. You need a break,
Yeah.
and you need to stay organized, because balance is the key to your success. You got to have balance, because if you have a family, if you have a job, if you have a hobby, whatever the case may be. So yeah, for me, compartmentalizing my days has given me that balance and the opportunity to do the things that I want without losing my mind.
Right. And kind of going off of that with all these different creative
Hmm.
outlets that you have. And we've talked about all of them. I mean, we touched on photography, not a
Right.
ton, but we talked about it, and people are aware that you are a photographer, the podcasting, the music, everything. And people, at least from my standpoint, I hear you talk about this stuff and I hear just like the instant passion, like kind of right out of the gate. Like you're
I
just so
do, man.
into
I
it.
love the stuff I do. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
If I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. Like, there's nothing like picking up a camera because it's capturing a moment in time, and there's nothing better than looking at a person and seeing your photography work on over 150 album EPs and covers. There's nothing like singing in front of 60,000 people 5 nights in a row, kids, and inspiring them to sing and go after. And there's so many variables that keep me content that I'd be crazy not to. But I say this with a huge caveat. You have to take the hardships along with it as well. If it's something that
Right.
you truly love, you got to take the good with the bad. And believe me, I've been beat up and come back from. I'm just a masochist for my passions, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
No, I get that. Yeah. Is there one that is like that the biggest driver, like that really like just gets you going out of those creative outlets? Is there one that's kind of like the top dog and then the rest? Or
Yeah.
are they all kind of fighting you for their joy and enjoyment?
It's good, man. It's one of those questions where it's tough to answer, and at this stage of the game, I never get sick of performing. I'll always take the challenge to snap a great shot or have a great photo shoot. But I got to tell you, I really enjoy podcasting. I love being behind the mic because of the interaction. Because in a sense, I could get on here and do all those elements that I do while I'm performing, and here I go again. I could sing, I could interact with my guests, talk about my journeys, talk about my photography. It's almost like it's an inclusive medium that I could, incorporate all my passions in one. So I'm favoring podcasting, but at the end of the day, I love them all. It's really hard to
Right.
pick one over the other, because at one point, I decided to delve down the road because of the passion that I have for it. I'm an artist. I hate to say that without sounding pretentious, but I don't know anything else except being an artist. Ever since I was a little kid, I was always drawing and borrowing my dad's camera. And back in the day, we had the gigantic video cameras with the battery that was
Like
the
this
size
one?
of.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, those are brutal. We're like jacked just because. What do you do? I carry video equipment when I was a kid, but it was just a different time, and I'm so grateful for it because I created this affinity for the mediums, in the entertainment industry on all levels, from the voice to the eye, and everything in between, man.
Right.
It's a great ride in the entertainment industry. It's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. I tell you that.
No, for sure. I would imagine no. Just in my experience podcasting, and that was an unfair question. I will give it to you because I know how passionate you are about all of them. But
It's a
I'm
good
glad.
one. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
Well, I'm glad that you said podcasting because that's what I would pick.
I do, man. I
Yeah.
enjoy podcasting. I really, really do. There's something about it. Again, as like I was saying before, it's a different listening experience. It's different type of engagement. It's a personal engagement. But here's the thing: even if I go back and listen to an episode, it's like listening to myself. It's like, wow, I'm listening to somebody else
Yeah.
because I know that millions of other people are going to be listening to this, and it's like it's pretty cool because if I could listen to myself without going, oh God, I sound terrible.
Which I've done a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, you and me both. Believe me, I don't think any singer likes their voice, but not from the point of conceit. But did I offer value? And I listened to. I'm so content because I really take the time out to provide nuggets for people. And I'm like, damn, I reminded myself I forgot to do that. That's a huge point that I gave myself.
Yeah.
I got to start taking notes on myself because you don't realize how much you know until you have to teach somebody, and until you go back and review, you're like, oh man, I forgot that, or oh wow, I know a lot. So it's a cool medium to snap you back into the reality of the situation.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Cool. It's cool.
Yeah. So, all right. One more question before we
Yeah.
get into the closing segment, and then I will let you go.
Sure.
So I always like to ask people, one of the questions that I do like to do are goals. That's one thing that I'm always interested to kind of see, because obviously, like we said before, you got a lot of things going on. And you have the single out, you have the podcast, you have all these other mediums that you're involved in. So are there some things that you're hoping to accomplish? Let's just take it for the next year. Are there some things that you're hoping to accomplish within the next year?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely bring more awareness to my music, obviously, because it's been a while since I released consecutive songs, more of a rock nature, because I'm a rocker by heart. But, I've been really involved in the message-oriented type of songs. Not that Worst Bad Decision isn't, but it's more rock. You know, it's more in your face. And the next ones are going to be even heavier. The last thing I released on a level like that was more commercial rock was Stratospheric. You know, that was inspired by Pharrell Williams on the show, who said, you know, Manny, your voice is stratospheric. You should make an album and change the world. And I did that. But that was, yeah, almost 6 years ago. So I'm happy to get back on track with that. Definitely want to keep assisting other artists in building their careers, to be known as someone who builds brands for artists. You know, obviously get the world to know Mojo for Musicians from the standpoint of an entertainment type of show, but also an inspirational and educational show as well.
Right.
You know, and if I can gain some listeners for the passion behind my message, that would be amazing. You know, I want to leave a legacy of improvement. I want to leave this planet better than when I got it. You know what I mean? That's my end goal. Did I affect you in a positive way than I did my job at the end of the day? You know, I want to have a zillion people at my funeral going, you know, that bald guy with a microphone was a pain in the ass. He was so passionate about it, but you know what? He helped me get through some difficult times that made my life better. I'm good with that. I can live with that.
Right. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people would be very happy if that was the case.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's move the show into our closing segment, which we call Under the Spotlight. So the Spotlighters have been listening to us talk, Manny Cabo, Mike Ham, for an hour, just under an hour. So what is one thing you want them to walk away from this episode with, so you are under the spotlight?
Sure, man. I would say live in the moment, enjoy life, you know, take time to smell the roses, and follow your truth. You know, just stop trying to be something that you're not. Be yourself and love yourself, and everything else just falls into place. That's
awesome.
it.
Love it. I love Under the Spotlight because we always do, like, that's where like the bangers are. Like the best answers are always wind up being
the golden diamond.
The diamond.
That makes any sense. I don't
whatever.
Even
The golden diamond. Yeah.
The golden. I should trademark that for not making any sense. That makes no sense, but he trademarked it, so he's going to make millions off that.
Right. Yeah. You can put it on a T-shirt, you know, the whole kind of thing.
Yeah, but I completely agree. You know, it's just those quick, short answers. And you know what? You could tell I've mentioned that a million times. And it's consistent because that's truly the way that I feel, man. I really, really do. So,
yeah. You learn what people are really passionate about in those answers, and like what they really want people to take away from all the stuff that we've talked about a lot in this episode. I learned a lot about you that I did not know before.
Likewise.
Yeah. So if people are out there and they're like, man, I need more Manny in my life, where could I go to get more Manny?
Sure, absolutely. Go to mannycabo.com. It's that simple. MANNY and Cabo, like Cabo St. Lucas. All my social media handles are on there. Everything that has to do with my photography is on there. My podcast is on there, all individual episodes. Reach out to me, DM me, let me know if you need me for your next album release, a next concert, performance, whatever the case may be. Appreciate that.
Of course, yeah, and I will make sure that
buy the swag.
I actually have the store open because I'm a sucker for like a T-shirt. So I have the 3 stores on the bottom. I'm just figuring out which one I need to click after I'm done.
Nice.
Here with
and there's so much more coming. Like you said, there's so much on my plate right now. But I'm focusing on about 5 new designs that I'm really excited about. You know, there's a design in there for my Inspire Mojo for Musicians, and of course my Manny Cabo brand for the singing.
Should I wait for the new design, or should
I? No, they're all good, man. They're all good. Trust me, they're all good. Everything I put on there is from my heart and soul. There's one that's a big seller with all my singers, and it's end off your night on a high note, sleep with a singer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was a custom one I made. Yeah, so
right.
That's been doing well.
Awesome. And if anybody out there listening, Spotlighters, if you want to go through me for some reason to get to Manny, even though I would tell you that he's very approachable, he might be cool and a singer and, you know, more famous than I am, but he's very approachable, extremely approachable.
I am, and you know what? I've learned that, you know, the most helpful people are usually the ones that are the most successful, and I like to mold myself around that because I've been surprised by a lot of my heroes, a lot of people that I thought were very intimidating that were pretty approachable, to use your word.
Right.
And I don't want to be that way, man. I want and it's funny, but managers in the past are like, no, you can't say hi to everybody. You can't talk to everybody. Like, these are the people that are sustaining my career. You know, I want to be able to say hi, but you do have to be careful. There are some psychos out there. I'm not going to lie. But for the most part, you want to reach out, DM me. I will always, and I promise you, I will always get back to you. Might take me a while, but I will get back to you.
Of course. Yeah. But if you do want to go through me,
Yes.
themorningspotlight.com or themorningspotlight@gmail.com is the email address and website. Flip those around, website and email address. So you can go through me to get to Manny if you want. I mean, I'd be happy to make that connection.
There you go. Absolutely.
There you go.
I would love that.
Facilitate a little facilitation.
And he sent me.
Yeah. Mike Ham, tell him Mike Ham sent me. And it'll get you nothing, but that's okay.
Absolutely.
But Manny, again, I appreciate it. This was, as expected, just an awesome episode. You're the man. We're gonna have to hang out because you're in Jersey, so it's gonna.
Dude, we have to. Are you kidding me? We got to go. What's that one place? The Grasshopper? That's up on there, right?
Yeah, that's like I can walk. It's 5 minutes from my apartment, so we'll walk there. We'll have a beer.
Played there a few times back in the day. Absolutely.
There you go.
Good stuff. Listen, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me on here, man. I had a blast.
Of course, Manny. And Spotlighters, thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Take care, brother.